Hey y'all, it's Francis from What a Hell of a Way to Die here. If you've been enjoying the interviews, the dad chats, and the news updates that we've been putting out, then you'll also love the bonus episodes on Patreon. Just $5 a month gets you access to 7 years of bonus episodes featuring more interviews, movie and TV show banter, and a lot more. If you sign up at $10 a month or more, I will send you a quarterly care package to you with stickers, patches from the store. Sometimes I throw pins in there. Just depends on kind of what I've ordered, what designs we've got going on. But 4 of those go out every year to everybody at the $10 and up level. Your patronage keeps this show running and makes sure that you don't have any ads for underwear, mattresses, or boxes of ingredients that you have to cook together. You can find all of this at patreon.com/hellofawaytodie, and that's down there in the show notes as well. Thank you and enjoy the show.
Glory, glory, what a hell of a way to die. Glory, glory, what a hell of a way to die. Glory, glory, what a hell of a way to die. He ain't gonna jump no more.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of What a Hell of a Way to Die. It's Francis, and with me I have KD, who's also known as War Takes on the Twitters. I brought him on to discuss movies, specifically one movie that I've been wanting to watch, and I was leaning, it's a movie that's like it's hard to come across the like, okay, here's going to be the I'm going to sit down and watch a 3-hour long political propaganda movie for funsies, really. So how are you doing today, KD?
You know what? All things considered going on in the world, it's one of those things where personally, I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
It could be a lot worse, certainly. I recently bought a ticket to go watch Godzilla -1 today. So
very nice.
I'll be doing that later, so I can talk about that too on the podcast, because that's all I do. Everything's content now.
Nice contrast going to watch Godzilla after watching a 3-hour long Chinese war propaganda movie. Though I have to say, as far as Chinese war propaganda movies go, I have to say, not bad. Not bad. Solid, good.
I was expecting it to be. I don't know what I was expecting really. And there was a lot of things that I was expecting to be American tropes that they kind of built up to, but then didn't do. Like, you've got the one guy who's showing a picture of his daughter, and you're like, well, you're going to die pretty soon.
Oh, I thought I had it right down in my notes. Like, this guy's fucking screwed.
Yeah, but he makes it to the end. For the most part, all of our heroes, save one, makes it to the end. And of course, who do they kill? But the enlisted guy, the NCO.
Yeah, who they kill? But the mortarman.
Yeah, that's why they don't exist anymore.
Rip.
Yeah. So we watched the Battle of Lake Changjin.
Should we just do a blanket disclaimer that we are very white and we apologize for butchering this language, because I know I'm going to.
Yeah. Although one of my notes is every American is pronouncing Chinese way too well in this movie.
Yes.
Because they all live in China. But we'll get to our American brethren playing the bad guys in here. Yeah, the Battle of Lake Changjin, which for our American military buffs, we'll know more as the Battle of the Chosin Reservoir, which is a battle of American forces versus Chinese forces during the Korean War. This is a movie that was released in 2021. It had a budget of about $200 million and made nearly $1 billion back on it. So yeah, it was a very popular movie. I was surprised. Like, I thought 200 million was kind of on the low end.
That's what I was just thinking.
Yeah, but you don't have pesky unions to pay in the People's Republic of China.
Yeah, and you're probably there's probably not as many work and health and safety concerns as there are in Hollywood, as much as there even are in Hollywood.
Yeah, there's a lot of practical effects that happen in this. There's a lot of CGI, but they do lean heavy on practical effects, and I don't know how safe most of those might have been. But I don't want to assume. Maybe they were very safe, and just it's a difference of how much things cost between us and China. But this was made for the amount of money as like your run of the mill Marvel movie that we do. But there's no Iron Man. There's no flying around. There are airplanes flying in it, which were a lot of fun. But it was a very surprisingly good looking movie. It had a lot of heart to it. It revolves around two brothers, one who's a company commander and his younger brother who enlists and is like, I want to be a soldier too, to impress my brother. There was a lot of I was expecting this to be like, okay, this obviously, and we're gonna say it's a propaganda film, knowing full well that America produces propaganda war films constantly too, but this one was a bit over the edge, right? Like
Yeah.
you're kind of a military history guy. I've read a few things about the Battle of the Chosin Reservoir. We're talking about 120 Chinese versus about 30,000, 120,000 versus 30,000, and a lot more Chinese soldiers died than American soldiers. And
They definitely put a sheen on it, but
right. Go ahead.
Oh no! I would say they definitely put a sheen on it. I mean, I'll say this. Ultimately, if the Chinese goal was to stop us from unifying Korea, then they did succeed, but it came at a bit more of a cost than they perhaps make it look here. The movie is like, oh, we lost this one guy. Oh no, they lost more than a few guys. But I mean, we'll get into that. And this is a propaganda movie, but it's not like we never make propaganda movies. And I'll say this, it's a propaganda movie, but it's definitely not a stiff one. Like you said, it has a heart. There's stuff going on here that we'll get into. There's things going on here. It's not just a flat, just sort of blanket like puff piece.
Right. You're not. It's not historically accurate, but also I've watched the movie Pearl Harbor a couple of times. Guess what? That's also not super historically accurate. And even that, they couldn't tell the story of Pearl Harbor. They can't tell the story of Americans can't tell the story of America getting its nose bloodied in a war without having some kind of back end to it. Because you could have just been like, okay, here's Pearl Harbor. It was bad. And we've got Cuba Gooding Jr., who's playing an actual guy who, went up and shot down a bunch of Zeros. And we've got, these actual stories. And you could have been done with it. But they're like, no, we need to have another 30 to 50 minutes of the Doolittle raid on the back end of it for some reason. And the reason is because we can't show America losing. But luckily,
America has to come back and... Yeah, America has to come back in and get that second punch. That's why truly Pearl Harbor is the prequel film of the 9/11 cinematic universe.
Right. And I mean, I think it came out in 2001. So it was one of the first, I don't know, I'm sure it was shot before 9/11 actually happened, but it is one of those, it sets the stage for all the jingoistic war movies that came after that. And just how god awful all of them,
and I'll say this,
literally each one was.
And this movie does end in a downer, though I only found out after the fact, and this is what confused me at the very end of the movie, is there's a part 2 to this.
Well, and part 2 is they go back, right? It's it's not necessarily a sequel, but it's a prequel because Sergeant Lee is in the second movie.
Okay, yeah, I was very confused at the end. It's like, wait, there's more movie? Wait, this is a montage? Wait, this is a trailer for the next part of the... Battle of Lake Changjin 2, Changjin Harder.
Yeah, you gotta. We've got even more Marines to blow up. God. So this movie starts out with one of our brothers here, Wu Queen, the brothers Wu, as we'll call them, Wu the eldest, and Wu the younger, because again,
there we go.
Don't want to mangle names. But Wu the elder is we see him bringing home the ashes of his older brother who was killed in the military. He runs into as they're coming up the river. There's a bunch of shitty kids throwing rocks at the boat, and one of them is his brother. So there's a little a back hey, we're brothers, we're back home, and the elder Wu is just like, yeah, we're gonna build a house. You guys, my parents have been living on the water all their lives. We're gonna build a house. We're gonna have all this stuff, all the things so far very American, I'm here and I'm going to do right by my parents, and we're gonna create a better life. And then
there's a lot of we're not so different, you and I, moments throughout this film. I don't know if that's inadvertent or on purpose, but they come up a lot. I did notice that his brother damn near Naruto runs home after he first he realizes it's his brother.
Yeah.
I also got a kick about the part where he's telling his dad about what he's been doing in the army. He's like, oh, what do you do? I'm a company commander. I lead 150 guys. He's like, you're a high official, which okay, for China in that period where they're still mostly peasants comparatively. Yeah, but you definitely next time you talk to Nate, you're going to have to tell him how he threw away being a high official.
Right. And unfortunately, Nate's parents were also in the army, so they know what a company commander is. And like, yeah, see, one shit, I got
Yeah,
it.
like
Right.
imagining a company commander trying to tell all his Joes, "You guys have to respect me. I'm a high official."
I'm high if it, and hey, like we said, the People's Volunteer Army of China at the time, maybe that was a high official. Uh,
Yeah.
so war comes calling. Wu the Elder has to go back to war, and his brother's like, no, take me with you. I want to go to war, and he does. The younger one does sneak into the war himself. And that was my first one. It's like, okay, one of these brothers is going to die by the end of it, right? Like,
Yeah, I thought for sure that like the older brother was going to die, and it was going to be a tragic thing where he had to bring home the ashes too, or something like
right.
that. And in the end, I guess whatever spoilers, whatever. It's a propaganda movie. Spoilers. They both live through it, and they do bro stuff together. So it's subverting some expectations.
Yeah. Which again, I thought was great because I was ready to be like sad about a lot of different things that just kept not happening. So that when something sad did happen, I was like, when the sergeant dies, I got a little choked up. Like he,
Me too. I got a little emotional at his death because he was built up as like this big strong guy at the end. So that was the one moment. It's like, damn, this movie's actually making me feel some emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you feel for these guys, like, and taking out the politics of it, taking out like the Korean War as it is. I am a sucker for a good military movie and a good death of a strong NCO or a strong soldier. And so yeah, outside of politics, it's a very heartfelt movie. So let's see. So they go. The Wu the Eldest goes back to war. It kind of jumps. It does some time jumping. It jumps to the Battle of Incheon.
Yeah, Battle of Incheon. Yeah, that was sort of the beginning of. So up until that point, this movie does casually jump over, how and why the Korean War started. If you're, asking like, well, who started the Korean War? Just don't worry about it. It jumps forward to Incheon, which is where the United States and the United Nations Command began their counterattack after the North Koreans had pushed them sort of down into the corner. And this is sort of the beginning of them pushing up closer to the Chinese border. And we get introduced to, notionally the main villain of the film, General Douglas MacArthur.
Yeah, Douglas MacArthur, played by James Filbert. Let's look at James Filbert here. Born in San Diego, grew up in Orange County. He got a degree in business and then decided to go. He went overseas on a business trip and then was just like, no, I love it here. He went to China and then, he appreciated the Chinese culture. So he was just like, fuck it. I'm going to be a guy now. I'm going to be the guy here who is an American, and because you think about American movies, especially in the last 20 years, you can just get a brown guy and say, look, you're brown, you speak something that like Americans can't tell the difference between Pashto or Arabic or Farsi or Urdu. So just yell in whatever language and Americans won't know any better and it'll be fine and we'll pay you for it. And that's what this guy does. That's what most of our Americans here do is they show up and they're the bad guys and they collect a paycheck and they go home. So
he's known on IMDb for 3 movies, 2 of which he has played Douglas MacArthur in.
Yeah, so he's doing all right by himself, I guess. And
get that bag. If is it a U.S. bag, is it a Chinese bag, whatever. You're getting a bag from some big film industry, I guess.
Yeah, you're doing okay. Doing better than me, I imagine. And we've got some other ones. The General Smith is played by a guy named F. Cruz. Kevin Lee is the big one that we have who plays.
He's the commander of the 31st Regiment, I think, which ends up sort of being the other sort of. There are several sort of main antagonists in this film, like aside from just it being America, which is MacArthur, this one regiment that they end up fighting, and then also the entire United States Air Force, which is really the true villain of the film because they make the planes out to be so villainous all the time.
I am curious because there did require to have a whole lot of other American actors to just be like background people. So I wonder where a lot of those people came from as well.
Oh, Russia, absolutely.
Okay, right.
I'm going to guess big. Like, there's definitely a few American soldiers you hear because there's a wide variety of like some people you're like, clearly, okay, this is an American or Canadian or someone who can do a convincing American accent. And then there's some guys you're like, okay, this is clearly just they got any white dude and then just told him to say his lines from like rote. To which again, we do that from the other end, so we really can't judge.
Yeah, there's a lot of very comical Southern accents happening inside of this movie that were
hilarious.
Like people who learned it from Looney Tunes, and no hate.
It's funny because we are notionally the antagonists of this film, and there's some slightly villainous moments, but overall they don't try to make us look inherently evil. And I gotta say, that scene where we're all coming ashore and they have all these tanks and troops marching, they do a really hard time of not making us look cool.
Yeah. It's Chinese propaganda has a bad habit of making us look awesome.
Oh yeah,
and even when we lose, we lost pretty coolly. Like they, the very end, the saluting the frozen soldiers.
Yeah, they don't make us look cowardly or incompetent. Like quite the opposite. They make us look like a strong, like hard enemy, which I guess makes their victory the sweeter. So we can't say that they're trying to make us look like dipshits.
Yeah, we're a formidable enemy, and I think that plays into the overall propaganda of the movie is that the Americans are, and let's face it, we are a force to be reckoned with. If you go toe to toe with the American army, you better bring your fucking A game. As long as you're not like an insurgency, because we can't deal with that, but nobody can. But
nobody can. It's a pointless endeavor. I've ranted about this off, but like,
if you want to go tank on tank shit though, like we're gonna do it. We're gonna beat you 9 times out of 10. So they don't want to push us as a cowardly, weak army that they defeated. We are a strong army that they defeated.
You could absolutely take a supercut of all like the big moments of tanks and planes in this movie and just put it to America. Fuck yeah, and it'd be a really great montage.
Oh my god, yeah! All the I think Patton tanks was what they.
Oh yeah, they have Sherman. That's the thing. Like you were saying earlier, there's a good mix of CGI and practical. So there's a lot of CGI scenes of tanks, but they have a lot of like real Sherman tanks and Pershing tanks. Like all the equipment, as far as I could tell, is like on both sides is fairly time period accurate. So they did their homework on making it look like the war.
Yeah, Americans popping out with grease guns and everything. Like the
that was sick when that guy popped out of the tank. Yeah. We'll get there. We're jumping around, but there's just a lot of good, memorable moments in this.
Yeah. So it starts out. Your first hour here is pretty slow because you've got the Incheon battle is your first like taste of the CGI that you're getting and the bombing and everything, and you've got Douglas MacArthur. You've got a great like zoom in on Douglas MacArthur's glasses with the reflection of the bombings happening. There's a lot of like really cool like just shots that were that made no sense, but were awesome to see.
Oh yeah, like signed like aircraft carriers like a mile offshore, where the whole point is you don't have to have it there, but you get to see the aircraft carrier there. It's like it's fine, don't worry about it. It looks cool.
Right, we've got the aircraft carrier like within artillery range of the shore. It's like no, it's fine. It's good. That's how we do things here. But I've never seen a military movie where the military tactics were correct anyway. So
never.
It all comes down to, does it look cool? And the answer was yes. It looked very cool.
The rule of cool always trumps all.
Right. So then we jump over to October of 1950. The Politburo, the political bureaucracy of Chinese Communist Party with Mao Zedong, chain smoking Mao Zedong. I don't know if that was like historically accurate or if the actor's just like, I will smoke constantly.
I think he did smoke constantly. Mao very, very dad coded in this. He's got a very sort of gentle dad like demeanor.
He does. This is not the go make pig iron in your backyard Mao Zedong. This is the one who cares about the Chinese military and having the conversation of like, well, do we join the battle of our Korean brothers because the battle is going to come to us next, and like historically maybe, but probably not.
Yeah. They do have to wedge in a Taiwan mention here. I have to put on my Taiwan mention thing because at the end of the day, all of this is actually about Taiwan.
Right. It's all going to come back to Taiwan at some point. And yeah, the thing is like, well, we should join into it because the Americans are on Taiwan and that's ours. And so that's a whole problem with them. But it's like, and I'm going to go back to Pearl Harbor. Every time that they would smash cut to the Japanese military and the commander would just like, oh, this, I wish there was a way that we could, avoid this war, these killing, all these young men are going to die for nothing. It's like, stop fucking genociding the Chinese, motherfucker. Like, You're not the good guys here in 1941.
For context, we're recording this just a couple of days after Pearl Harbor Day, and of course, every year I look forward to what insane thing the Libertarian Party has posted on their Twitter about how actually we forced Japan declare a war on us with our embargo, and then embargo. Why did we embargo them again? What was going on in China?
It's not just the libertarian. I've seen some leftists say that shit too.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
What can you know what? Whatever.
Right. It's just posting. It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
None of it matters. So Mao Zedong gives them the blessing, like, yes, let's go to war. His son is there. He's like, Dad, I want to go to war too. And Mao's just like, all right, fuck it, I guess. If you want to, everybody else is going to war. He wants to go to war too, but at least Mao, and like, I didn't really realize until later that he does pop up later in the movie.
Oh yeah, I almost didn't recognize him. Where Mao's son will pop up again later. He has like 3 scenes in this movie. He's kind of just wedged in like almost as an afterthought or as a way to tie this back to Mao. But yeah, he basically begs like he begs the guy who will go on to lead the Chinese forces in North Korea, Peng Dehuai. I'm so sorry, folks. I'm just going to call him General Peng, who he ends up being later on outside the movie. He becomes the China Minister of Defense, but then also basically gets thrown in prison and dies during the Cultural Revolution. So
as you do, also not mentioned in the movie.
Don't mention it. It happened later. Don't worry about it. We're pre-Cultural Revolution. They're still riding that high of having won the Chinese Civil War.
Yeah, gotta protect the communist revolution at all costs.
Exactly.
And, go make pig iron in the backyard. So the Seventh Company, what do they call it?
I think what it's meant to be, the translation's a little wonky. I think it's just meant to be like the Seventh Shock or Seventh Assault Company. Basically, they're supposed to be like in World War, before the term became associated with Nazis, I think the term would be like stormtroopers. They're meant to achieve the initial penetration that the regular Joes can exploit.
Yes, the translation calls it the interpenetration company, but
which I chuckled at every time they said it.
Yeah, but they are the first ones to go in. And there's a fight. So there's a big, all the soldiers are kind of getting together. There's a big fight between like artillery guys and infantry guys that were just like, no, we won the revolution. No, we did. And then we have our very first, like, a general comes down and gives a rousing speech to everybody to like we're all in this together. There's a lot of rousing speeches that were happening.
Well, they love a rousing speech in this. They love a rousing speech and stuff. And again, like the soldiers arguing, we kicked more ass. No, you did. Again, they're just like us for real.
Exactly. And again, like, I was like, here we go. Here's the general to give a big speech that's going to bring everybody together. Very exciting. So some American tropes still a part of this. I do like.
Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
They watched a lot of American movies and took notes about what they liked and what they didn't like. And it's like, we like the rousing speeches. We don't like killing the heroes. So I get it.
Yeah, I get it. And they're mobilizing at this point. Everyone's sort of getting recalled. I found it funny earlier when our main character gets recalled. It's recalled by a bunch of guys riding into the town on horseback with torches, which I assume is just how you got called up when you were still in the reserves. They would come by like with a torch on a horse middle of the night, and then give you a list of vaccines you need to get before you got deployed.
Yeah, they show up with the list of vaccines and like all the online training I have to complete before I can show up. All right, so Wu the Younger. During this time, we discover Wu the Younger has joined the military and finds his brother. I really like Wu the Younger because he's very slunk back a lot. Like, I don't know, he just seems...
He's very sulky teen.
Yeah,
he's definitely like a very, like, he is the character's meant to be 19, and you know what, the actor does look fairly young. He pulls off like being a sulky, like late teenager pretty well, but he has some growth throughout this movie, which is good.
Yeah, he does come around really well in a lot of different ways. What else has he been in? Nothing else. A lot of Chinese stuff. Nothing. Sometimes those guys like come over to America because his name is Jackson Lee. Jackson Lee.
Like so some of these guys will come over, especially if they're more active, like specifically in like the Hong Kong movie scene. Yeah,
that's the big one. A lot of these guys have crossover with Hong Kong movies. So All right. So Wu the Younger is joined, and Wu the Elder is just like, you fucking dipshit. All right, fine. You're with me, I guess. Because that's how you could do the military back then, I suppose. You just joined, and then you were.
It was a lot more loosey goosey. And I suppose,
Yeah.
like, at this point, like, they're still kind of like growing from having been a rebel army into like an actual army. Like, even at this point, the People's Republic of China has only existed for a year. They've only just like won the Civil War, and there's still some fighting going on in some places. So they're still kind of transitioning. I don't think they've written all the rules and regulations fully just yet.
Right. They haven't fully finished their AR-670-1.
Exactly. You know how it is.
They're getting there though.
Yeah.
So he says, "Yeah, come. You're with us then." So he has his brother join his group. It's kind of a like, look, if you're with me, at least I can keep an eye on you, I guess. So they all get shoved onto a train. They're getting ready to get onto a train. They're getting ready to get like all their cold weather gear, and but they see American planes coming, so they're like, shit, we got to get on the airplane. Or sorry, we got to get on the train. There's this great scene where the civilians are all throwing clothing onto the train for them, just like, take as much as you can, because it's going to be winter. It's going to be
cold.
Yeah,
and this was a real problem actually. A lot of Chinese soldiers did go to Korea so quickly they didn't actually have a lot of winter clothing, so that was fairly accurate. That it was hard to get a hold of. Yeah, they have a couple scenes like they get on and off the train a few times before they get to North Korea. This is where we get introduced to the first I guess I have in my notes, it was a commissar homie. Like they translated his title as instructor. I'm pretty sure
political
he's meant
instructor.
To be exactly. So he's basically the commissar, but he's like the company commander's like best friend. This is the guy where he took the picture of his wife and we're like, oh, he's gonna die.
Yeah, he looked really familiar too. I was looking.
He looked so familiar. I've seen him in something.
Yeah. Let's see. I'll have to look him up later. But yeah, he looked very familiar. He had a very striking face.
Exactly.
So we've got our very first Wu the Younger is trying to integrate into his new group here, and he's not doing it well. He's getting bullied, and then he goes to his brother and he's like, they're bullying me, which is like the worst thing you could ever do, is go tell on everybody in front of them. And his brother
going to your company commander in front of everybody and saying that they're bullying you.
Right. And he's just like, well, fucking fight back. What do you want me to do? But it's very fun. Like it's like the entire scene where he kind of picks a fight with one guy, and the guy's just like, oh, okay, I'll introduce you to the rest of the company as they fight through the train.
I loved that guy jumping around, just like ducking and diving. And to be fair, the reason they're bullying him is he tried to take someone's gun because he keeps asking people to get. He's gun crazy. When his brother comes home, he wants to see his gun. When he gets on there, he's like, "When do I get my gun?" It's like literally the Simpsons guy, like, "When do I get the freaking guns?"
Exactly. Motherfucker wants to get strapped up, which I understand. Like, he's in the military. Where the fuck is my gun? So yeah, we have him joining the group, and they have they do have the ceremony of like, you're now a part of our group.
Like an induction ceremony or something.
Right, you're the 667th soldier. Everybody has a number. Like, I am this number of soldier, and we meet Sergeant Lee, who is kind of an old grizzled NCO. They don't really call him sergeant, but he is obviously the NCO.
He's I think if I remember correctly, he's a NCO, but he's like he's the mortar platoon leader,
right?
Which I guess makes in some armies you'll have sometimes platoon leaders who are just senior NCOs rather than officers, but he's basically he leads the mortar platoon.
Right, but they're all one big group. They all work together. So we meet Sergeant Lee. And he is very he's immediately one of my favorite characters, because he's that like, I don't take any bullshit, but also I will fuck with you
exactly
in my own way kind of thing. Because like eventually, because Wu the Younger is just like, fuck it, then I'll leave, and he's like opens up the
jump out the goddamn moving train.
Right. So everybody grabs him and they're like, what the fuck are you doing? But we get this beautiful like rolling hills of China and the a whole lot of the Great Wall, which I don't think that's how it was set up, but you know what? It looked really good. It looked like an AI generated image.
Oh, it was absolutely like CGI. It did have a sort of like a stable diffusion sort of AI generated feel to it, but they all immediately like forget their troubles and get enamored by how beautiful the Great Wall looks. And his
What
punishment is to stand guard until morning, and he does it like you start to see him like being like, okay, the Great Wall inspired me with so much patriotism that I'm going to stand guard and be a good soldier, and they finally give him a rifle.
Right, but no bullets. No,
No bullets.
We don't trust you with the bullets, but we'll give you a rifle. And there is a great like in these like the sergeant's like, look, I'll give you bullets when we get to Korea. So they end up like as soon as they kind of get to Korea, but the train has to stop because the train is the track is broken. And so Wu the Younger goes up and is just like, hey, we're in Korea. Where are the bullets? And so the sergeant's like, oh, okay, and he gives him like a bunch of empty shell casings. He's like, well, where's the head of the bullets? Like, I'll give those to you when we get to battle. Don't worry. Like, he's just
they have some jokes in this movie. There's jokes that are like legitimately funny jokes.
Yeah, really.
This is the thing. I thought I was going to be all stiff and like so proper and like, but no, there's some humor in this movie.
Yeah, it was very enjoyable to watch. And so they all get like, okay, we'll get off of the off the train, stretch our legs. But then they get noticed by some American airplanes, so they have to like, shit, we got to get away. They get away from the train. The Americans come and bomb the train, so they lose a lot of their cold weather gear. They lose most of their food.
But crucially, they say one of their objectives is they're not just reporting to the front, but they need to sort of a subplot here. We keep cutting to like the headquarters of the Chinese forces in North Korea, which is that they need radios. They're lacking radios for communication. So the 7th Company, their first sort of objective is they need to take these radios, and they managed to save them from getting bombed, along with like the signal operators. So they need to get these guys to like the general's headquarters. Also, this is crucially, I'm pretty sure this is, and only briefly, this is the only part in the film where we actually see Koreans, because I remember thinking like, where the hell are the Koreans? And it very briefly, when Wu the Younger and a homie he will have very briefly, so don't get attached to him, sort of like, you know, on top of the train fooling around, they see like their guys talking to some guys in other uniforms. I'm pretty sure that's meant to be the North Koreans. They have no speaking lines. You see them for about 5 seconds, and those are the only Koreans I'm pretty sure you see in the movie.
This is not a movie about North Korea, even though it's about the Korean War. It's about the Chinese.
Or about South Korea, for that matter. It's not a movie about Korea. They might as well be fighting in China.
You know, if only the Americans had invaded China, then they could have really had a movie. But we've never pulled that one. So,
well, this is actually, you know, in case you're wondering, how did China manage to go to war in Korea without starting World War III? They do touch upon this because technically, so the military of China is the Chinese People's Liberation Army. So in order to avoid starting World War III, what they did was they took a bunch of divisions from the PLA. They created a notional separate organization called the Chinese People's Volunteer Army, and sent that to Korea under the pretense of, no, these aren't Chinese soldiers. These are all volunteers who are volunteering to fight for North Korea. Imagine if we took all of 3 Corps and said, these are no longer in the U.S. Army. They're actually fighting for the Ukrainians now, and just sent all like 4 of those divisions to Ukraine.
It doesn't count. It doesn't
count.
They're written down on a different piece of paper.
Correct.
So. Yeah, so we get the troop train is bombed, so like, fuck it, we gotta walk. So we start to get a little bit of combat stuff. We come across a dried out lake bed that the soldiers have to walk across, but then they start hearing they hear airplanes coming. So they're like, everybody lay down and pretend you're dead, because there's already a bunch of dead bodies all over the place.
Oh yeah.
So if we just,
this is a good tense scene.
Yeah, it really was. And the Americans come up over. We get a guy who is obviously is going to be named Tex at some point.
Tex in Dutch, I think.
Yeah, Tex in Dutch. They come around. They're just like, oh, let's go and get out of here. It's too cold up here for me. It's like, oh, I bet I can shoot up them dead stiffs down there better than you can. So they do. They just decide to like do a strafing run on a bunch of dead bodies, which, you know, kills a bunch of our soldiers. But
yeah, because our guys are pretending to be dead. So they basically like cut through a whole line of them, taking out the homie that Wu the Younger had just made.
Yeah, we got to have our first. Wu's got to start, you know, having his brain turned inside out by the horrors of war. So this is
exactly.
It starts with he has to pretend to be dead next to an actual dead body, and then his buddy gets fucked up. So they come, they do a strafing run, and they fuck off. I don't know what the point of any of that was. I don't think that I don't know if that's actually a thing that happened. Probably not.
Me either. I do like how they subvert the expectation because they say, "Oh, let's come back around again," and our guys on the ground are like, "Fuck it!" If they come around again, we're going to shoot them. And you see them getting ready. They're getting ready to all like leap up and shoot these planes as they dive bomb, and then suddenly the planes just get an order to go somewhere else and leave. It's like, damn, really working on that. They're really subverting a lot of the tropes.
Yeah, we get a great like kind of Brady Bunch kind of with just squares of different soldiers.
They love
ready to
using
shoot.
that shot a lot,
Yeah.
like that motif of having like the Brady Bunch, like all the heads. Like they really love doing that in editing in this movie.
And they were fucking ready. They were just like, all right, you this command take the left and that command take the right. And like this is a time when you could probably small arms fire a fucking jet out of the air if necessary. So
yeah, and these guys I think were just prop planes. We see some jets later in the movies, but they did absolutely, with a volume of fire, could have taken these guys out.
Yeah. So, but luckily for them, they decide to fuck off, and the soldiers continue on. As we go on, then we come across our very first like really good battle, where the 7th comes across some other Chinese soldiers that are fighting a bunch of Americans. It's not really like, I don't know what this was, like, I don't know.
They were trying to take out a radio tower, an American radio tower, and our guys just decide they're going to stop them and help them because they figure they're outnumbered and they're going to die otherwise.
Right, they're going to help out, but they kind of split the forces, and Wu the Younger was supposed to not go to the battle, but you know, he's Wu the Younger. He's going to do whatever the fuck he wants, so he just follows along with his brother. It's just like, hey, I'm gonna keep on going, and I think Sergeant Lee was also just like, shit, he's not with us now. We have to go get him. And then they all kind of go and join the battle.
Yeah, they realize they got to go back from it, and they intervene and ambush and stop some American reinforcements that were going to go and take out their guys back at the battle. This is the point where I wrote down my notes. This movie's just a COD campaign, and I'm okay with it. I'd want to play this COD campaign where I play as like the Chinese in the Korean War. This feels like a level in a Call of Duty game, and I'm for it. I want to play that level.
Yeah, it was very like this entire battle. The battle scene is like at least 20 minutes long, and we get a lot of really great. We get a lot of tanks busting through stuff. We get a lot of machine gun fire. We get a lot of great mortar fire. We get to see how good the mortar men are doing what they do.
They don't skip on the gore.
Yeah, they there's a lot of blood packs going around. There's actually one scene that I noted where I think Wu the Elder was crouched behind like a dead cow, and they put squibs on the dead cow.
Yeah,
so
I noticed that
it was
too.
Shot.
They went all out with this shit. They did not skimp on anything.
Yeah, that $200 million was well fucking used in this. And we get, like I said, we get some great tank stuff. We get a lot of tanks getting blown up. Like the 7th is showing up, and the only thing they really have outside of small arms is mortar fire and a couple of bazookas. They don't have the heavy, the tanks. They don't have the heavy artillery that the Americans have. They're just really kind of making do. And they make do very well.
They steal a lot of America. They basically turn the American. They even mentioned earlier, like, the Americans have the best equipment in the world, and when they come across that, they immediately turn it on the Americans. So turnabout is fair play. And I mean, like, at this point, China didn't really. The People's Republic of China, they didn't really have a domestic arms industry fully yet. So the war stuff they're going to war with in this is all stuff they stole anyway. They have stuff they stole from the Japanese and stuff they stole from the Chinese nationalists that we and the Brits sold them. They're going in there with like Sten guns and shit like that. Yeah,
I did notice a lot of the magazines on top of the guns and shit. Like there's a lot of, again, very historically accurate in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
So we get one of my favorite scenes, tank on tank violence, where
this is so good.
The guys take over a tank and they're like, chasing another tank, and the tank that the Chinese guys take over goes barreling down the hill, and then the other one comes after them. There's great like tanks busting through. They built a lot of stuff for tanks to run through, which I think is great. That's exactly what you should do with tanks.
Exactly. This whole scene gave me flashbacks to when I was still playing War Thunder.
Exactly. So they bust on through, and then you get the two tanks pointing at each other, trying to get who's going to get there first, and then they both shoot at the same time, and the shells collide in midair, but not like collide and explode. One, like the one that's coming at the Chinese tank, is knocked off course, but the one the Chinese tank shot hits directly on and blows up the tank.
I was hooting
beautiful.
and hollering at this
100%. I fucking loved it. I was at that point. I'm 100% into this movie. I don't give a shit.
My fists were in the air, and I was just going schlock, 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 schlock.
We get Wu the Younger gets his first like 4 or 5 kills, and one of his like. In the beginning of the movie, we see how good he is at throwing rocks, and it turns out he's really good at throwing anything. And we have this great slow motion scene where he's got 2 Chinese stick grenades. He yanks the strings on them with his teeth while an electric guitar is playing and throws them both, and they go into a chimney. And like these 2 fragmentation grenades, oh boy, did they explode some in a lot of really good ways.
He times them so they airburst over like this Americans, and his brother is basically like, "Yo, do that shit again."
Yeah, play that shit again, DJ. And he's really good at killing the shit out of Americans with a grenade.
When those electric guitar ticked in, my note here is just the music in this movie goes hard as fuck.
It is. It's got a great soundtrack to it. Like they really when you've got some patriotic stuff happening, it's got good patriotic movie music, slow motion stuff. They really know how to score this movie. Like I am
they
surprised.
have a good balance of like the orchestra and then like electric guitar and some other stuff. They have their cake and eat it too with the music. I guess it's kind of like Sharp, isn't it? You mix the orchestra with the electric guitar. Exactly.
Well, at least Sharp was made in the 90s, though, when electric guitars were hot. It is very surprising to me that this movie only has a 5.5 out of 10 on IMDb. I don't know what movie that everybody else was watching, like, because this movie fucking rules. Like,
I'm blaming that on like boomers who are just like China. It's like, yes, it's propaganda, whatever. Yeah. Just enjoy it on its merits.
Exactly. Watch everything blow up in a really cool way.
Yeah.
So, the tank battle ends. They end up the 7th manages to get to the forward command post and deliver the radios. I think we see Mao the Younger again at this point.
Yeah, he's undercover as like Commissar like Liu or something. He's under a pseudonym, so no one knows who he is.
Right. So but he's also not frontline soldier. So he's we just kind of keep getting lingering shots of him being like, "Wow, look at these guys go!" Like, I don't know what the point of any of that was. Like, you could have just never shown me Mao's son again, or again, I don't know. It's when it comes to the propaganda parts of it, maybe it's just, like,
I mean, this movie had like seven different production companies, which meant that we're at least 7 different producers, if not more. And if they're anything like Hollywood producers, they're doing the Chinese equivalent of, you got to put something about Mao in the picture as they sit there in their chair with a big cigar. You got to have something about Mao. The kids these days, they don't know about Mao. Do something about his son.
Yeah, I imagine that putting Mao's son in there is like the projection of Mao watching them without having to actually be there chain smoking.
Yeah, exactly.
So we get to this base. They start to kind of notice how cold it is, and then we smash cut to the Americans who like have all the food that they want. They're all warm, and they're all just like, "We're gonna be home for Christmas." And
that scene made me hungry. That meal actually looked pretty damn good.
Yeah, I have never now, like in the last century, never eaten that good in the fucking
They
field.
They were pretty much just eating like a fucking like anime food from from a Miyazaki film or something.
Yeah, this was like a Redwall book came to life. There's just like all these, just like, oh look, a big thing of like just turkey legs, like it's medieval times or some shit
with CGI steam coming up off of it. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
But everybody still is eating outside for some reason. Like there's no warm tents. Everybody just has to eat outside. But
meanwhile, our guys are eating moldy potatoes.
Right. They're all passing around.
Which is meant to show, like, I get it. I wrote my notes like, I get it. You're very strong and virtuous. You live off moldy potatoes. Give me some of that turkey.
Right. And hey, that's again why if I was going to be in any military, I want to be in the American one, because while they did kind of get their asses kicked, at least they were well fed in this one.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what that's all I care about is how hungry am I. But yeah, we do have the juxtaposition. It's really showing like how strong the Chinese soldiers are during this time. But like really not like it's not even just like look how hard and virtuous they are. It's just like this is just the reality that it was. The Americans were well fed and the Chinese were not. So so we finally get to the battle. Everybody's converging on the Chosin Reservoir or Lake Changjin, whichever you want to call it, because different sides call it different things. It's much like we call it World War II, but the Soviets called it the Patriotic War.
But first, we had to say we got to pour one out for Mao's son, because before they get there, the Americans. I think they managed to hone in on their radio signals, and they bomb the headquarters that Mao's at. And the dumbass is almost. I know they're trying to make his death seem heroic, but they just end up kind of making it seem pointless and dumb, because he's almost at the air raid shelter, and he turns around and goes, "There's a big map in there. We don't have a lot of big maps. I should go save that big map." And it's a nice big map, but like, homie, I think you can get more maps. And he goes and runs into this HQ trying to save this big map after the wall, and he literally just gets burnt into nothingness by napalm.
Right, and there's still no map. So congratulations, man. You didn't even save the fucking map.
Yeah. R.I.P. Mao's son. You would have loved Google Maps. and apparently, I looked this up. Apparently, he did. There's some contention about Mao's son's death, but apparently he did. They said the story that's accepted, or at least most pushed, is he did die in an American airstrike. Whether what he died doing apparently is very debated. I don't know if it was going to save a map, but it just ended up kind of making him look like a dumbass, and then everyone's like really sad about it without actually knowing who he was.
Right.
And it's just I'm just sort of sitting here like, what was the point of this?
Right, like Mao's son being buried under like just a pauper's grave. It's just like, this guy, he loved maps, and that's it.
You see Mao like pacing just sort of out in the snow aimlessly. Maybe it's meant to show that like he had skin in the game too, and that everybody's losing something in this war. I don't know. It just felt kind of like tacked on.
Yeah, but yes, it's a we need to have everybody be sad, including Mao. It is a look at what everybody has lost here. And Mao, who let his son go to this forward operating base for some fucking reason.
And Mao was so distraught that after this, he demanded that everybody install a pig iron furnace in their backyard in memory of his son, who really loved pig iron.
Yeah, and to have a big map. Every Chinese household has a big map in it now.
Yeah, exactly. It's tradition.
So yeah, we get to our main battle, and again, a fantastic battle that we have here. Yeah, and it is like the kind of the Americans were kind of fucked on this one from the beginning, because they were 30,000 troops surrounded by 120,000, and the idea was to surround them and basically grind them into nothing. While the propaganda of this is to say, like, look, we drove the Americans back. The American propaganda is, look, we were outnumbered and we managed to punch through and escape. Either way, the Americans lose, which I think is the big thing here. Is there's a big L put up by the Americans. But let's talk about this battle a little bit. So, we've got more mortars. We've got a lot of good hand-to-hand combat. So the beginning of it is the Chinese are coming up over these ridges, and they're shooting down into the reservoir where all of these Americans are. So the Americans are trying to turn themselves around. We get a lot of really great Jeeps and shit getting blown up. They blew up a lot of deuce and a halves. I don't know where they got all of them, but they
had so many deuce and a halves. Like, again, like there was a lot of CGI in this film, but they had a lot of like real tanks and trucks and shit. Where did they get all these from? Maybe they were left over from like stuff we gave the like nationalists during the Civil War or something, or maybe they just bought them like wholesale from like old dudes in like the South who just had them in their backyard or something.
There could have also been like, hey, we need to make these. Let's make a bunch of shells and put them on the chassis of like a Mercedes or whatever, and drive them around. And not really officially tanks, but they look like tanks, or they look like deuce and a half. Because
they did that like in Red Dawn and stuff.
Yeah, every battle was done at night, so like that helps cover up a lot of things.
Oh yeah.
But also everything was also on fire, so things were illuminated very well. I like how they did yes, we need everything to be dark, but we also need it to be light. So we're gonna shoot some flares, and we're gonna have everything be on fire to give us an ambient kind of light to it, but also not daytime where you can see how bad our CGI really is.
Yeah, this movie loves flares. Like the third main character of this movie is flares.
It's shooting a flare. Everybody just loves to shoot a flare up in the air and blow a whistle. That's how war is done in the 1950s. We also have, like I said, a lot of really great hand-to-hand combats. Actually, in the first battle that we came across, Wu the Younger really, he kills his first person. And there's a like, fucking get the knife, stab him, and Wu just can't do it. But then like later on, Wu is just like, no, I'm ready to kill the shit out of everybody. And he hears like something where like you can only, I guess the Sergeant Lee tells him is like, you're a hero when you kill 20 people. So he takes that to heart, and he's just like, no, I need to kill a shitload more people. And at one point, Oliver Smith, General Smith, who is in the no, not
no, it's the colonel. It's the commander of the 31st. Because I think the villain, the regiment that they sort of basically wipe out is the 31st Infantry Regiment, which they keep really driving home like, oh, their big tradition is they fought in, they intervened in the Russian Revolution. At which point I feel like I wonder like if any of them actually knew or cared about that at all, because like most Americans don't even remember that we did that, but whatever. But they eventually later on in this battle they wound the colonel's wounded and they corner him, and Wu the Younger is just about to like basically coup de grace him, and his brother like stops him, like basically saying like there's a time to kill and there's time to not kill, and he has to have like this sort of moral dilemma of like, am I just going to kill like an unarmed wounded prisoner or not? And he eventually relents, but at that point he's still like in mind of like, taking to heart, no, I literally have to kill 20 Americans and I'm a hero.
Right. I've got like 8 more to go, and here's one like, and this is a full bird colonel, so it's got to count for at least 3. But also like he's the colonel is shot like in the chest. He's not going to survive this. It's not like, oh shit, let's go get a medic. It's like, no, we need to watch him bleed out to death instead of like putting him out of his misery. And there is a conversation that the Wu brothers have about their older brothers, like, how did he die? And it's like, his entire lower half was blown off. I was trying to stuff his intestines back into him, and he was asking me to help him kill himself to move on. And Wu the Younger is like, well, hopefully you can do that for me too. I'm gonna stick by you so you can fucking kill me too.
Yeah, damn son, way to buck up your brother before the battle. You're really good at this. Good for you.
I was waiting for Wu the Younger to be like, well, if that happens, I'll shoot you in the head. Don't worry. Like, but no, we don't get that. But yeah, we have this colonel who's bleeding out, and like I imagine he's not going to fucking survive the rest of this.
I did look up this guy to find out how he died. So apparently he did die, but it's assumed he died. But this isn't how it happened. I'm sure this is shocking to you that this isn't entirely accurate. I think the most accurate account I saw was his troops saw him getting like across a lake, getting taken prisoner by the Chinese and dragged away, and it's believed that he died in a POW camp. But we don't see him die there, so I guess we could just assume that he gets taken somewhere and then dies in a POW camp.
Right. We don't get to see him anymore after this, so it's assumed that he did not walk out of there. But the Chinese are trying to make it be like, no, we're noble. We're going to let you die of starvation in the cold.
Which they die of exposure and cold in a camp, in a civilized fashion rather than being shot.
Right, like a man of your stature should die hungry and cold and alone.
Yeah.
We've got the final battle. The Americans retreat, and then there's a little bit more battle as they're pushing the Americans back and back and back, and eventually. Our closing shot is the Chinese People's Army cheering as the Americans get on boats and fuck off from Korea, and then we get the ending of like, here 100,000 Americans, but also like another 100,000 civilians also, because guess what, the Chinese not that noble as it turned out to the civilians.
The end of this movie is a little weird because they have their big battle. It kind of ends on a sour note because they win, but then we have Mortar Sergeant Lee dies because we dropped like a targeting bomb to help bombers, like they call it an FX bomb, like basically it's a giant flare to help our bombers find them, and he like picks it up and throws it in a jeep and drives off to drag the bombers away, and of course gets hit by a bomb and is just totally fucked up, and then is just crying and dying in his friend's arms, and that's just like, damn, this is making me feel some shit.
Yeah, there's not even like the like holding on is like, I did well. I hope, Wu the Younger, come here. You're a man now. You're a hero. Which is like, I'm cold and I'm scared. Please don't leave me.
Which I guess is probably the more accurate depiction,
Yes,
but
yes.
damn, son, like damn, that was not how I expected him to die. Like I was expecting him to have like again subverting tropes. You're expecting the big tough guy to go out all stoic and tell him you did good, son, and instead he's just like I'm cold. Please don't leave me. It hurts so bad. And it's like Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
But,
poor guy.
it ends on and then Wu the senior because he's keeping like a record of basically all 677 soldiers, and he's crying as he's trying to cross out this guy's name because he's like the last one of like the first class, and then the movie just kind of that's where the movie really kind of ends, and then like the last 10 minutes are basically just sort of a montage of the rest of the Korean War basically.
Yeah,
and it's just that's just how it ends. It kind of ends kind of somewhat abruptly and weirdly.
Yeah, they yada 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 over the rest of it, and it's like, and that's it. We drove the Americans out, and we don't need to talk about this anymore until the sequel that they made. Which
Don't think about the end of the Korean War. Think about that sequence with the soldier whose name I can't remember, who literally does the Grand Theft Auto thing. If like he hijacks a Jeep and is throwing grenades at American tanks as he drives around them.
Oh God, yeah. There's also the bazooka shot that goes through the window, through the passenger and the driver's side window, and almost hits the guy in the face. Yeah. There was that. I think there was a deuce and a half got pit maneuvered at one point.
He throws a bomb under a deuce and a half. Like there's just all sorts of again, it's like you're watching a COD campaign, but it's a movie, and I'm okay with this. And I should also mention like this all happens basically around Christmas time. So I guess technically this is a Christmas movie. So if you want to add this to your Christmas viewing list, it is technically a holiday film, just like Die Hard technically is. So just keep that in mind.
They do mention because they find a radio and they're playing "Wish You a Merry Christmas" and they're having to explain like, oh, Christmas is like an American holiday that they celebrate and that they're all going to be home by Christmas. It's like, yeah, we'll give them a reason to be merry, motherfuckers. I do like that the Chinese are very like, a soldier is a soldier no matter who you're fighting for, and they have that same kind of thing. I also really like we get a scene where one of the generals are like marching back to the sea and they come across, which I was surprised. I'm like, why are we not seeing more troops frozen solid somewhere? And then we do, and they're all frozen solid, but like still at their post with their guns up and everything. And the general like salutes him and is just like, I could tell with an enemy this formidable, we were never ordained to win. Like,
yeah, and that's sort of the overall theme they do. Like again, they don't make us look incompetent or even really cowardly. They show us fighting hard and everything. But the thing they sort of make, they add this tinge of like everyone's just like, I just want to go home. Why are we here? Why do we have to be fighting in Korea against China? Like it's somewhat subtle in how they do it. But yeah, like it just really drives home. All soldiers are the same, which is driven home by when they bust into like one of the American tents and they all take turns like shoving each other out of the way to stare at the pinup on the wall. So all soldiers are the same, which is horny.
Yeah, there's a lot of, they're joking around with each other and they're just constantly kicking each other in the ass. Like there's a lot of times that they're just having fun. Like, hey, it's just because we're in a bad situation doesn't mean we can't, have a little bit of camaraderie together. So there's a lot of really great back and forth between all of the soldiers. So Battle of Lake Changjin 2 is Funchilin Pass during the Chosin Reservoir. I don't know too much about that one, but it has all of our favorites. And
okay,
Li Chen,
I like it. Well, I guess if as long as I haven't made myself look like a total dipshit here, you'll have to have me back so we could watch part 2 at some point.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that. It was filmed back to back with the first one too, and it was literally.
I had a feeling they probably filmed this all at once and just divided it into 2 movies. That makes sense. But I mean, like we're just scratching the surface. There's a whole bunch of other movies out there. Have you heard about the Chinese version of Top Gun that they did? I think it just came out this year. It's called Born to Fly.
Holy shit!
It looks like incredible schlock. There's another film kind of like it from a few years ago that they have a few sort of Top Gun like movies about their guys flying around in jets and stuff. So we're just scratching the surface of this. There's also the movie of a movie where the Chinese army goes to like the Mid East. I think it's called Operation Red Sea. It's meant to be like China like doing epic sort of hostage rescue in the Middle East. We're entering into a whole new world of schlock Chinese action movies here, Francis.
And look, I am a huge fan of Japanese and Korean movies at this point because nobody's giving us giant monsters like the Japanese, and nobody does horror like the Koreans. Like Korean horror is great because it's just like, what if you were just a normal guy and everything was horrifying? Like, oh, that does sound bad. That is the world I live in. So yeah, that we'll do some more Chinese propaganda too. I'm into it now. Like I said, I was thinking that this was going to be bland and really jingoistic, and even a lot of the stuff that I'm reading about the second one, you're like, it's propaganda, but like it's well done. It's not like up its own ass, which is what you really want to avoid.
Just thinking about the meme of like, I'm so sick of looking at bad propaganda all day. I can't wait to get home and watch good propaganda.
Exactly. And I feel like as long as you know it is, you're doing okay.
Yeah, you gotta go into this with just some self-awareness and make sure to be thinking about it a bit. But just remember, it's still like you could enjoy things about it that are enjoyable just as long as you put it in its proper context and make sure you're not taking it completely at face value.
Exactly. I love the movie Top Gun. I know that it's propaganda bullshit, but it's fun. It's jets going fast and Tom Cruise. Like,
oh yeah, I think the Top Gun sequel that I watched, that came out a year or two ago, like that was one of the best movies I've seen in a while. Absolutely propaganda, but it was a damn fine action movie.
Yeah, that's all I care about. Like, as long as you can make the action good, I don't care what your message is. You're good. The other guys are bad. Fine, blow up a bunch of deuce and a halves, and you make me happy.
Yeah, show us a bunch of tanks and some fun little humor moments, maybe a little bit of a pinch of sadness here and there to make you feel something, and you got a flick, you got a film.
You got me. Well, KD, yeah, we'll come up. We'll find some time in the near future to watch number 2, and maybe watch some Top Gun, and really get into it. Hopefully, we won't watch too much that we both end up traveling over to Japan or China to become an actor in Chinese. Although I don't know, like maybe that's a good move for us. We can leave Twitter behind and become bad guys in Chinese movies.
Look, we'll stick a pin in that. We'll see what happens and how long Twitter still exists, and then we got a list of options afterwards. But we'll stick that in the maybe category.
Yeah, that's fine. Well, Katie, thank you so much for sitting down and watching this movie with me and talking about it. I don't know if this is going to be a bonus or a regular. We'll see. Actually, you know what? This will probably come out as a free during Christmas. So since it is a Christmas movie,
it's a Christmas movie.
I couldn't get anybody else to watch Hallmark Christmas movies with me, so we're going to just go with this one.
Hey, you need someone sometime, let me know. My least socialist quality is I'm still kind of a Christmas nut. I genuinely love Christmas, so that's my most bourgeois quality is I do love this time of year. So I need someone to watch a Christmas movie with you sometime. Let me know. Have
you watched the one? I can't remember. Name's escaping me, but it's shot in Guam. Like the entire thing is shot in Guam on the.
I listened to the episode of you having watched this, which it's just like that whole world, specifically that world of the Hallmark military themed Christmas movies. That's a whole nother level. Like you're getting down, like really down on the iceberg there.
Yep, the USS Christmas is one of the more recent ones. So maybe we'll drag some stuff out for next year. But thank you for coming on, everybody. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.